Boundless Mind with David Dillard-Wright, the podcast that takes you into a space of tranquility, abundance, and freedom. The guided meditations and bonus content that you are about to hear will remove worry from your life and help you to release obstacles on your path. Learn key insights from philosophy, spirituality, and psychology to support your journey to greater mindfulness and well-being. Now is the time to open your heart and mind to boundless inspiration.
Hello, I'm David Dillard-Wright. Welcome to the Boundless Mind. Today's show is all about the four-step process of realization. Each show we begin with a brief meditation, and then we talk about the topic for the day. Today's meditation comes from my book, A Mindful Morning, and it's called Belonging to Others. It's on page 60 for those of you who have the physical book. We begin with a quote from Adi Shankara, who is the founder of Advaita Vedanta. Shankaracharya says, "That aspirant for liberation who, when engaged in activities in the world, looks upon himself as a wave in the ocean that is Brahman. When just sitting, thinks of himself as a gem strung on the thread that is Brahman. When experiencing sense objects through the sense organs, sees all objects as Brahman. And when sleeping, considers himself as immersed in the ocean of bliss that is Brahman, and spends his days in this manner, is the one who is established in the indwelling self, that is none other than Brahman." And that's the end of the quotation. Error and suffering arise when we think that we exist independently from others, that we can separate ourselves from the unfolding of existence, our support and origin. Liberation begins when we see that we are all enmeshed in something greater than ourselves, which may be called the universe, or God, or Shiva Shakti. The egoistic person thinks to increase his or her power by withdrawing from the whole. But this only produces a kind of mania and a sudden or eventual downfall. This morning, as you rise to greet the sun and sky, think of yourself as belonging to the universe and the universe to you. The trees, the grass, and the sky are your body and your mind. Your thoughts reach out to the swirling galaxies. The physical world that your eyes can see represents a tiny portion of reality, and all of that unseen energy makes your life possible. Billions of years of silent yearning made your life possible, and you are a moment in a great journey that will continue billions of years after you have left this body. I invite you to pause the recording here for a few minutes of silent meditation. Now we're going to go on for the topic for today. My new book just came out. It's called A Mindful Day, 365 Ways to Live with Peace, Clarity, and an Open Heart. It came out just before Christmas in 2017. And what I'm going to be reading today is a little bit more expanded version of what's in the book. Sometimes not everything makes it into the printed version. This is just a little bit expanded version from the introduction. We're going to be talking about the four-step process of realization. And this four-step process applies to absolutely anything that you might want to see accomplished in the world. In meditation, we usually think about self-realization, but it could be applied to anything that you might want to do, anything that you might want to master. We begin with two concepts from Indian philosophy that are intrinsically related, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is consciousness, the mind, the observer. It is the divine masculine, symbolized by the god or deva known as Shiva. This principle is passive. Its goal is only to reflect eternally the feminine principle, Prakriti. Prakriti is the active principle, which is nature itself, God made manifest in trees, people, computers, and galaxies. This divine feminine is symbolized by the goddess in all of her forms, Parvati, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and so forth. But in some schools of Indian philosophy, and I'm thinking of the Sankhya school, there's a primordial Prakriti, the divine stuff out of which worlds are made. And when I say stuff, I'm using scare quotes, because the primordial Prakriti is neither material nor immaterial. It has the potential to take form. It holds within it the possibility for all causality, for all of the possibles, including the one that we currently inhabit. For some reason unknown to us, this primordial divinity chose to take form, to become nature as it is made manifest to us. And to add even more mystery, this primordial divinity chose to become subject to law, to cause and effect. We wake up every morning, and because of gravity, down is still down, and up is still up. Not that we understand gravity, because we don't, not even remotely. There are still many Nobel Prizes to be awarded on that front. Somehow, giving this force a name, gravity, and having Newton's laws or Einstein's theories makes it seem like we understand it. Let's just flag the mystery here and say that human beings don't have it all figured out. We still need 1 million more Albert Einsteins and Marie Curies. And then we will still have more to learn. We have this sense of continuity, that things will continue to be the way that they have been. Part of this is just a bias towards familiarity, but part of it is also because the universe acts in ways that are continuous with what went before. Nature takes patterns, and we can observe these patterns and make sense of them. We can imagine a completely chaotic universe, but it does not square with our experience of the world. Let's go back to Prakriti. This divine feminine, this goddess stuff, underlies all existence. It has taken form as us. We are all part of it. Now, before we get too carried away with our divine nature, we should also note that it pervades trees and grass, and yes, even landfills. Prakriti has, as it were, delegated some of its powers to us. It, or she, has given us a share in this dance of creation, preservation, and dissolution. Everything comes from her, and everything returns to her, but we have this wonderful ability to be able to see and understand as it all happens. We also have the observant nature, which comes to us from the Shiva side of divinity. These two principles are completely reciprocal, Purusha, Prakriti, always dependent upon one another, always playing this game of hide-and-go-seek with each other. And we are part of the game. We are not being used as chess pieces because we have actual freedom to do and think as we like. Because everything arises from Prakriti, and Prakriti remains beneath the appearances, each one of our actions is imbued with divine potential. While the divine substratum has evolved into material form, such that we have the illusion of a separate ego, and congress with the elements, the Prakriti is not fully effaced or spent. This means that all of our actions take place within Prakriti, or the divine nature of all reality. Our freedom gains purchase through this divine medium, and nothing that takes place within the mind or in the world fails to leave an impress upon this spiritual substance. At the same time, the ripples that we send into the spiritual substance through our actions reverberate through the entire universe, expressing general tendencies that come into fruition, sometimes locally and sometimes at a distance. Many types of activities fall under the general heading of action: feeling, thinking, doing, and willing. All of these are types of action. And all of these activities make an impress upon Prakriti, which carries them forward in seen and unseen ways. On the gross, material level, the butterfly effect sends ripples outward, so that the tiniest action impacts thousands of other entities. This effect is less like a chain of causation and more like a web of causation, as each node on the web may be connected to several others. A multiplier effect quickly begins, so that with each iteration, the initial impress spreads rapidly outward. On a more subtle level, valences of emotion and thought also have collective effects, as in the mob mentality, or more positively, team spirit. Even beyond the subtle layer, I maintain that even when a thought or intention is not willingly shared with others, it still leaves a non-zero impress on the cosmos. Learning to control and direct our co-creative powers leads to mastery, either in some limited domain or in the entirety of life. If we can use our divinely ordained powers for good, we will have tremendous powers of self-expression and world transformation. All this time I've said a lot about the Prakriti aspect of the divine nature and little about the Purusha aspect of the divine nature. The Purusha is the witness, the observer, consciousness itself. It is the passive aspect of the self, bare awareness. We exhaust ourselves through action when the Purusha aspect is insufficiently developed. The Purusha aspect enables action without attachment, so that I do not become emotionally invested in the results of my action. I'm able to stand back and let the effects of my actions accrue, without regard to getting this or that specific reward for my actions. I set things into motion. Or better, I allow things to occur through me without inordinate desire or perturbation. The Purusha nature allows for patience, stability, and contentment, even in the delay or deferral of the intended result. Much of what we do in meditation is cultivate the Purusha nature, so that we do not become exhausted through attachment. With these two divine principles at work, we can bring things from thought into reality in the world of work. The more we use and understand these two principles, the greater our capacity for transformation of self and world. We must keep in mind at all times that we do not do things on our own, but only through the divine agency that flows through us. Nature speaks through our words and works through our hands. Even while working, we do nothing, but Purusha Prakriti accomplishes all. We may speak casually about having done this or that, as long as we remember that we are instruments for this process that goes beyond ourselves in depth and extent. So that's all by way of introduction. Now we're getting into the main part of the 4-step process of realization. And I'm going to go through 4 phases: shall, will, is, and was. Doing begins with setting things on the way to arrival, with the I shall. The verb shall has fallen out of use in American English and is well on its way to disuse in British English. It originally meant pure futurity and was used in the first person. Due to its archaic nature, it sounds slightly formal. We still use it occasionally to indicate some proposed course of action, as in, shall we order takeout? It is the most contingent and alterable form of to be, and yet it still expresses isness. It is more than nothing, non-zero. Some work has been done in merely proposing a course of action. This shall is where all of our adventures and misadventures begin. It sets things into motion, and when it is joined to action, it becomes more and more inevitable. Notice that the word will, as in something will happen, is the same as the word will, as in the mental operation of choice. It is the second step in bringing something from a mere idea to a concrete fulfillment in the world. At this stage, the mind conceives plans for bringing the idea into action. I am deciding among the available options. Okay, Chinese or pizza. I'm searching the web for the right number. I'm getting out my wallet. I'm dialing. Will and action are conjoined. And when they are conjoined, something will happen. The result may not be exactly as desired, but something will happen. And eventually, and the more complicated the goal, the more steps intervene, the will becomes is, the present tense. What I had previously only conceived in the mind, through successive coordinated action, becomes a reality. The present tense form of to be is, like gravity, most mysterious. Whole libraries in philosophy have been devoted to Heidegger's question, what is is? It is the place where we dwell, the moment that we hope to expand by meditative awareness, the 0 hour of our hopes and dreams, the now. It is the most precious resource, the one thing not to be squandered, the one thing needful. This is where discernment becomes especially important, so that we make sure to do that which we consider to be the most important. The more we can stay with the now, in actions that relate closely to our true goals, the more satisfying and abundant life will be. But before we get to setting goals into action, we must deal with one more form of to be, the past tense of was. The Prakriti is always going through stages of creation, preservation, and dissolution. It is always evolving and changing. In order to destroy something, we need only neglect it. Unfortunately, this means that whatever is not maintained will no longer exist. This is a fact well known to homeowners. The refrigerator needs to be replaced. The HVAC unit will need repair. The gutters need to be unclogged, and so forth, ad infinitum. The same is true for a business reputation, a marriage, a partnership. We have to maintain both material and intangible things, or the is will become a was, will no longer exist. We can't take for granted anything that we cherish, due to the basic contingency and entropy of the universe. We have to choose while we still have choice, or the universe will take over and gradually sweep away that which has gone neglected. So let's review the 4 steps of bringing ideas into reality. First, because of the divine nature of the universe, nothing ever goes completely without result. Even the weakest, most half-hearted thought has some kind of result. It can be very subtle, but every thought has some consequences. So we should make very sure to think only that which we wish to become real. We should say, I shall, only to that which we, in our heart of hearts, really want to see come to fruition. When we fail to envision properly, we are stuck with work that is less than satisfying. The occultist Aleister Crowley, who lived a quite libertine lifestyle of sexual experimentation and drug use, coined the law for his philosophy of thelema, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. Crowley biographer Tobias Churton points out that this law goes deeper than do whatever you feel like doing at the time. The law really says that we should make sure of what we really want to do in our heart of hearts before proceeding. Don't just coast along with the conventions of society or the beliefs that you inherited from your parents. Do your true will, which is different and more difficult from what you feel like doing. The true will is equivalent to a life's mission. This can only be discovered through the trial and error process of experimentation. The law, for Crowley, meant practicing sex magic and taking drugs. Well, we should say in addition to importing yoga to the West, which is not bad for a drug addict. But to do these things because Crowley did them is not to live according to the law. That would be imitation and not self-investigation. The true will is unique to each individual and can only be discovered by that individual. In Indian philosophy, there is something called svadharma, one's own dharma, one's own right path through life, which is different from the obligations of profession, family, or creed. We begin the I shall with true will. If we do not know our true will, we have to begin with a supposition, a guess, a hunch about what we think that true will to be. Then we begin to take actions, basically on faith, that align with the true will. These actions will be small at first, conducting research, beginning to save some money, carefully considering the available options. Then, over time, the actions acquire habitual features that magnify their effectiveness, like a stone rolling downhill. It becomes easier over time to believe in the vision, and with great difficulty and over a long period of time, it is. Of course, by that time, a new vision will be necessary, for visions, too, become stale. They, too, degenerate just like material things. If you remember that book a few years back called Who Moved My Cheese? Anyway, the cheese isn't moving, it's rotting, it's going bad. We feel dissatisfied in life because we are still living in the dreams we had 20 years ago, instead of finding new visions, more appropriate to the time and circumstances. Now, there's a number of ways that this process can go wrong. I won't spend much time on them because the person who truly follows this fourfold process will succeed. One way that things can go wrong is to say, I will be a world-famous X, rather than saying, I want to be X to the best of my ability. We have to focus on actions rather than the results of actions. And nothing could be more disappointing and fruitless than waiting around for others to acknowledge our talents. We focus on the things we can control rather than the things we can't control. We focus on actions rather than the fruit of actions. We get started with limited resources rather than waiting until we have the time or until we have the money. The time and money will come if we go ahead and get started with what we already have, even if it's 15 minutes a day devoted to something that we truly want to do. Let's say I phrase my goal as, I want to be a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist. That's all very well and good, but I will experience tremendous pressure as I first stare into that blank page. I should say instead, I want to finish my first novel and start from there. I should give myself permission, at least in the beginning, to be bad at what I want to do. I can't control what others think of my work. I can only do my work badly if necessary. In every new pursuit, there is bound to be a learning curve. Where there is no learning curve, there is no growth. Where there is no growth, there is likely to be dissatisfaction. If our goals are not challenging enough, they are not good goals. A goal already achieved must be maintained, but some other area of growth must then be opened in order to keep things from getting stale. Life exhausts itself and replenishes itself in endless cycles of renewal. So there you have it, the 4-step process of realization: shall, will, is, and was. I hope you find that useful as you move into a new year, whatever it is that you decide that you want to do, that you, first of all, just get really clear about what it is that you want to achieve, and then begin to take action, no matter how small it might be. It might seem insignificant, but as you begin to take action, and remembering that action begins with thought, gradually your vision becomes manifest and reality. That's it for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find more teachings and meditations at heartchakrasociety.org, or you can read my Psychology Today blog called Boundless at psychologytoday.com/blog/boundless. You can find me on Twitter at David Dillard-Wright. That's at DavidDillardWRI. You can find my 3-part series of books on meditation, A Mindful Morning, A Mindful Evening, and A Mindful Day on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. There's also a calendar version that has 365 daily quotes. Send me your comments and questions, and I will get to them on future shows. Our theme music is by Tommy Rooster. Intro voiceover by Kimberly _DeVries. Zafir Dar on piano. Hafiz Shabazz Rashid on tabla. That's all for now. Have a mindful day.